Hello, welcome to the Get Miss Toy. I'm your host, James Hart, and
I'm Sharon Smith.
with us for a change, instead of Bill Duncan, who's great also, but he couldn't be with us. He's I don't know if he wants me to say this, but he's having a facelift.
Oh, is he? Good.
No, he's not having a facelift, but he's having some dental work done.
Yeah.
So.
It's kind of cosmetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today we're going to talk about Twilight of the Idols. It relates back to our show on Plato, Georges. Twilight of the Idols was written by Friedrich Nietzsche, and there's a lot in it about Socrates, and it's a heavy criticism of Socrates. He says Socrates is like his philosophy was of decadence or a decline. He was a state of decline, that the philosophers before him were way better, the pre-Socratics.
Yeah. All I can think of is go Nietzsche.
I'll read a piece.
Okay.
In every age the wisest have passed the identical judgment on life. It is worthless. Everywhere and always their mouths have uttered the same sound, a sound full of doubt, full of melancholy, full of weariness with life, full of opposition to life. Even Socrates said as he died, "To live, that means to be a long time sick. I owe a chicken to the Savior Axel, please." Even Socrates had enough of it. What does that prove? What does that point to? Formerly one would have said, oh, and did say loudly enough, and are pessimists most of all. Here at any rate there must be something true. The consensus sapientium is of proof of truth. Shall we still speak of this today? Are we allowed to do so? Here at any rate there must be something sick. This is our retort. One ought to take a closer look at them, these wisest of every age. Were not all of them perhaps no longer steady on their legs, belated, tottery, decadents? Does wisdom perhaps peer on earth as a raven which is inspired by the smell of carrion? Now that's where I was saying, like, Socrates is being criticized, that Socrates actually drank the hemlock himself, so he brought on his own death in the trial.
Yeah, what I picked up from this is that you're talking about criticizing, and I think that's fine. I think it was good that he criticizes that great thinker, because we don't want to be just blind to them. We want to explore them, get to the nitty-gritty of the topic, and get to the crux of it, and understand it, and move on. Another thing that I heard was that life is sick. When you're living, you're sick. And that isn't my opinion at all. In fact, I feel the opposite. But
what Nietzsche's saying is these wisest people, like Socrates, are saying that life is not worth it.
Yeah, he's
criticizing. He's criticizing saying that.
Yeah.
So he's on your side.
Yeah. You're right.
He's saying life is not.
He is saying life is not
worthless.
Worthless.
Which is
what my philosophy is.
But
my philosophy is, live, laugh, love, right? I live by that. I know there's a lot of books out there that talk about, life, but for me, I keep it simple as possible, and but I sure do enjoy, listening to what you read.
Do you think wisdom is sickness?
No.
Like a lot of people, not a lot of people, but savants have like really high intelligence on some things and low intelligence on other things. Like they'll be really good at music or something. Like, do you think that there's some relation between sickness and great intelligence? Or
I don't say great intelligence. I say great awareness. Because without awareness, you only see one side of this problem, and there's no solution. If you have a greater sense of awareness, you can see around thought, through thought, back to thought.
So what have you heard about Socrates? Like, what do you think about him? Like, he came into our show a few times now, just because he's a good he's a topic that I like. Bill doesn't necessarily like the topic because he just hasn't heard enough about him. I don't think, but he's getting more interested in
Yeah. Well, I took communications at the University of Calgary in the 90s, and I was in a lot of general studies classes that studied all these readers. And one of the topics, the main topic about my classes, was that it's called The Void. What writers and artists and people out there, they're trying to avoid the void of life. And I adore listening to Socrates. What do I think of him? I think he laid the groundwork for greater thinkers, and I think he was the person that wrote this was well versed on Socrates, well educated, and I think every great mind should challenge the pervading thoughts of centuries before. I think it's a sign of intelligence.
But it's interesting because Socrates was the known guy for being critical of other people's ideologies and stuff like it. In the dialogues, he's the shit disturber. He's the one that comes in and like knocks down people's stuff. And Nietzsche's calling him like the last one in a row of great things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it was in Birth of Tragedy, he's talking about Euripides having one spectator, and that being Socrates. And Euripides wrote these tragedies that they were just like I don't know, they were awesome, but you get a sense of like you don't know what's going on with the God because like it's not a good, like Dionysus is not a Jesus love everyone God. He comes down like in the Bacchae. He comes down and he screws with the king and leads him out into the forest, and he gets him ripped apart and kills him. And if you put yourself in the shoes of King Pentheus and you imagine a god coming down and just like screwing with you, lying to you or like deceiving you or like using powers to like make you do things like fall off a cliff or something, like that is, I don't know,
an evil god.
It's an evil god. And Nietzsche, another criticism of Socrates, says that he was the only spectator of Euripides, the only one that really liked what Euripides was doing.
Mm-hmm. So that's another criticism of Socrates, was that Socrates...
Well, I'm not criticizing Socrates. I
know,
really
but,
like
no,
Socrates, but Nietzsche, yeah.
Yeah, that's another criticism that Nietzsche could use. I don't think anyone should be put on a pedestal, not Socrates, not Nietzsche. When you put someone on a pedestal, you get distance from them.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be on the same level as most people. I don't want to think I'm more intellectually, I have more prowess intellectually than I have. I mean, I'm just a stoner schizophrenic. But, yeah, don't put people on pedestals.
Well, what do you do then? It's like you find these great artists or thinkers, and you put them on pedestals just because they're better than you. They're like awesome. So why can't you put them on pedestals? And
every child born in this world is born beautiful. You know, every child is beautiful. It's what life that you have to face that changes you and hurts you and fucks you over. But, you know, I believe everyone is equal at birth, and I don't, like, the right mind thinking in 12 Steps group is like, when you say one person is worth more or better than another person, that's not the way to think. You know, in our lives, in our society, we should think that we're all equal. And not that you were saying we don't, but, yeah, that's just a thought. Maybe it's a tangent. I don't know. But I know some people who are more inept to reading Plato and Aristotle and Socrates and Cicero and all those people, but they shouldn't consider themselves more more. They might be more better off, but they're not better than anyone. I'm not better than anyone. We're all the same. I admire people for their different areas they do well at, and these guys are standing in their own. They're on a soapbox, and I like that because I need to learn too.
I'll read you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
One chooses dialectics only when there is no other expedient. One knows that dialectics inspire mistrust, that they are not very convincing. Nothing is easier to expunge than the effect of a dialectician, as is proved by the experience of every speech-making assembly. Dialectics can only be a last-ditch weapon in the hands of those who have no other weapon left. One must have to enforce one's rights, otherwise one makes no use of it.
Interesting.
It's another, because Socrates was all about dialectics. That's like like what we're doing, like talking or like just discussing.
Yeah.
As opposed to
talk
like
therapy.
As opposed to like writing like, here's what I have to say and here I am like. I think Nietzsche writes in a very style different than dialectic. He's not really talking to anyone. He's just
journaling.
He's saying what he says.
Yeah. He
says what he says, and like it stands or falls. Like it's not tested. Like I think dialectics is like a test of your ideas. If you go out and you say like, these are my ideas to your friend, and your friend's like, oh, those are shit because of this and this and this and this. Yeah. Then you've kind of learned about your ideas and stuff. But if you're just alone and you're like, and you're trying to overcome yourself, that's like really, how do you do that? How do you see your own flaws?
Well, in mental health where I work, there's dialectic behavioral therapy, and it's sort of Zen, Buddhism, and cognitive behavioral therapy. So dialectic, what that word means to me is sort of like talk therapy. And I think if you go out, even if you're arguing with somebody else, this is just a tangent, but when you're with your mates and you discuss philosophy, it's like it helps both you both learn, you both, come to new thoughts, come to new realizations, or you gain more knowledge where you see a flaw and you can criticize it. But I think Nietzsche is a comfort to a lot of people who see the vastness of some people, like Socrates, Plato's, Aristotle. They'll be around forever. They're part of our human history, right? And when you see someone like that, make some comments and journal in his book and write out his thoughts and his beliefs and his values and his history, I think that's totally okay to challenge him and to continue to be on a path where you're not blindfolded and just blindless and just believing what great philosophers say. I think when you go to university, it's critical evaluations of books, of music, of art. Critical thinking is developed. And when you read Nietzsche out, that's just critical thinking. These are his thoughts. And I find it very inspiring.
Well, yeah, that's his whole style is critical. It was polemical, they call it, where he's just like attack essays, basically.
Yeah. I used to write letters to friends.
I really enjoy reading it because it's just so vivid. It's just like so. I don't know what to say. It's just well written, and the ideas make you think about a lot of things. But
yeah.
I'll read a bit more.
Sure.
If one needs to make a tyrant of reason, as Socrates did, then there must exist no little danger of something else playing the tyrant. Rationality was at the time divined as a savior. Neither Socrates nor his invalids were free to rational or not as they wished. It was de rigueur. It was the last expedient, the fanaticism with which the whole Greek thought throws itself at rationality, betrays a state of emergency. One was in peril. One had only one choice, either to perish or be absurdly rational. The moralism of Greek philosophers from Plato downwards is pathologically conditioned. Likewise, their estimation of the dialectics. Reason equals virtue equals happiness means merely one must imitate Socrates and counter the dark desire by producing a permanent daylight, the daylight of reason. One must be prudent, clear, bright at any cost. Every yielding to the instincts, to the unconscious, leads downwards. Now there he's almost praising Socrates, which is what he kind of does. He really likes Socrates, but he's like trying to criticize him, and at the same time show what are the good qualities of Socrates, and yeah, it's still predominantly negative what he's saying. But what do you kind of get from that? That
well,
he makes,
like I heard something like rationalization is the Greek. Like the way they present it, it's the only other option is to rationalize and rationalization. And, you know, they praise rational thought.
Perish or be absurdly rational.
Yeah, absurdly. What would you consider to be absurdly rational? I'm confused. I think
Socrates was absurdly rational. I think that's a good
observation. Yeah,
it's a good. Yeah, but it is it's derogatory, almost to kind of like to say that he's absurdly rational.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I would say he was like he's very rational. Like I'd say he's very rational.
Yeah.
Instead of absurdly rational, I guess.
Mm-hmm. That is a good criticism, I guess.
He
too.
says that Socrates made a tyrant of reason.
Yeah, he did. He said that.
Like to make reason kind of like the
law.
The law and order, yeah.
And if you don't, then you're.
And what do you think of the equation reason equals virtue equals happiness?
No, I don't think that's true. I mean, for some people, whoever wrote this believes that, and that's how he lives his life. But
Nietzsche's writing, this is what Socrates believed. But Socrates maybe didn't say that exactly, but in so many ways.
Yeah.
He was all about virtue. Mm-hmm. All about how to be happy. And they kind of, and reason, they were very similar things to him. Those were his values,
They say that the most virtuous people, like people who actually go out there and help, are more fulfilled. So maybe virtuous people just find, because I know if I had did something wrong, I know people who've done things wrong and never admitted it, and you don't feel good about yourself. There's something inside of you that it becomes very negative and it festers. Like all secrets keep you sick. Or people who've done, like killed somebody or raped somebody, mostly they hate themselves, and so being virtuous, I guess, would lead to a sense of overwhelming happiness and okayness with the universe and okayness with whoever they believe in, whether it's Muhammad or whoever. So I'm sticking up for Socrates right now and saying a lot of what he says is true, makes sense.
There's a story of Socrates that a passerby came by and said that it something about him being a monster in face and a monster inside. Mm. And Socrates said, "You know me well." Oh. So he's saying. So Socrates is saying that he's a monster inside. What do you think of that?
There's some people that are tormented about all kinds of things, and maybe he was tormented by morality, virtue, and that kind of stuff. I had a friend that said, "There's no use having a conscience. It won't serve you." And I'm like, "What? Life without a conscience?" It's like, dump it. You don't have to say sorry. This is your life. You're not hurting anyone. Be who you want to be. Don't worry about your conscience. And I'm Catholic, and that is really hard when you have Catholic guilt.
So we have about 6 or 7 minutes left. We usually at this point start. Well, first I ask if you have anything that you wanted to say about about today's show, or anything you want to wrap up or talk about.
No, I had a pleasant discussion about something that I used to know, not really well, but I used to know those books, and I used to have to write speeches, and I used in university communications, it's a lot of it speech writing. So they study the ancients, and then you work your way up to mass media, mass media, and yeah. So I think the one thing that I've learned taking ethics, because my highest grade in university was ethics, is to will the good. Just when you're in communications, or when you're with people, when you're with your child, when you're with your boss, will the good in every situation. And that reminds me of a tattoo that my friend had on her arm called Minding North. That meant she's minding heaven and minding God, or minding whatever goodness is out there. And I like to do it too, because it makes me a better person. And it'll all pay off. Just you wait.
And it'll pay off. That's what Bill and I always talk about.
It pays off.
I was thinking that was kind of a delusion that things have paid off, because things have never really paid off until you're in the box downstairs. But and we also go through try and come up with show themes. Do you have any themes you'd like to hear or be on the show for, or you'd like to see a direction the Get Missed Way goes?
Well, I told you that coming here and doing these shows feels very therapeutic, and I think I like to contribute more. If you ever need a guest, I'm here for you.
Well, what are some of your talking points?
Just being a shameless self-promoter of mental health.
All right. Well, maybe we could have
Mental
all three of
illness
us on.
Yeah.
For a future show.
People find it interesting hearing, I was at a party and he heard I was schizophrenic, and he was so fascinated by me. He's like, tell me how you hear them. He's from Ireland, he was a nice guy. Is that the end?
I think we're at the end. The dead space really signifies the end on our show, because Bill and I will stop being able to talk. We'll run out of our subject, at least what we can say of it, and we'll be done. But
keep this show in mind. Sponsor us.
What did you think of the little select passages I read?
I thought they were really intelligent. I mean, it was nice to read. It was nice to hear that kind of philosophy again.
Well, thank you for listening. I'm James Hart, and
I'm Sharon Smith.
And this is the Get Missed Toy.